retail inflation for the month of October in the CPI, that is the Consumer Price Index based inflation. It came down from 5.02% to 4.87%. To begin with, how do you see the numbers?
We take two numbers, not just the retail inflation, but also the wholesale inflation. And retail inflation, which was released on Monday, and the wholesale inflation, which has been released today. That's a Tuesday. So if you talk about the retail inflation, which is 4.87%, it is lowest in 4 months. And coincidentally, it is at par with the June number. The only difference is the last 2 digits of the 4-digit numbers which we follow for the retail inflation. Now, the important thing which we need to remember that it is not the food which is making a change in the inflation, but it is the non-foods which are making changes in the retail inflation. So we are seeing some reduction in non-food prices, whether we talk about health services, whether we talk about education services, whether we talk about entertainment, or there are other non-food things. There we are finding some reduction, and that is also helping to bring down the inflation. The other thing we should remember is that the core inflation. What is the core inflation? Core inflation is headline inflation minus inflation for food and the fuel, which are the volatile one. So core inflation has come down from 4.52% to 4.23%. That is a very, very significant thing. And why it has come down? Because the non-food prices have come down. So retail inflation is down, not because of the food, but because of the non-food. Now, when you talk about the wholesale inflation, which we also call as the producer's inflation, now it is in the negative zone for almost 7 months. This is a 7th successive month of negative territory, which is now 0.52%, and last month it was minus 0.26%. There we are seeing that the food inflations are, especially the prices of pulses and cereals also, they are having some impact on the wholesale inflation. So since we do not take services in the wholesale price index, so when we talk about the two inflation, we need to understand that which are the sectors contributing in the inflation. And there we are seeing that on the one hand we have a different kind of parameters here, and the other hand we have the different parameters.
Cereal prices are still in double digits. Earlier it was close to 11%. From there a slight moderation of 10.65%. But double digit inflation for cereals, isn't that a matter of concern?
It is. And if you see the first estimate for the crop production for this year, all the agriculture produce except tuar, the estimate is down. So that is creating some kind of impact on the cereal prices. And if we see the cereal prices number, which is 10.6, if I'm correct, 10.6 in the month of October, it is not so small. And in the cereal, if you take the rice inflation is also very high. Now expectation is that the kharif crops will enter the market in the month of December. Then we will see some kind of moderation in the prices of rice. But wheat inflation is still very high, and that is a concern. No doubt government is taking a number of steps to bring down the prices of all the cereals, and we should not forget that the government has also committed to distribute free food grains among the 80 crore population. It's only positive factor for us is that we have a strong buffer stock. So that is not going to impact the overall thing. But no doubt, since the monsoon has been erratic this year, we have seen some kind of disruptions in overall sowing as well in the crop overall production. So there will be continuously, we will see more increase in the prices of cereal, but may not be as high what we have seen during the last 6 months.
Shishirji, you also made a mention of the kharif crop, which is due in December, just next month. But there have been concerns regarding the yield because of the El Nino effect. So it is still to be seen, and some of the analysts are saying that probably the yield might not be up to the expectation. So, that could also lead to, inflationary expectations and impact the prices again.
Certainly. And we should also remember that this year the monsoon movement has been very, very erratic. So sometime we saw a monsoon movement in the initial days, and then we saw some kind of pause, then again we saw some movement. So it has been erratic. That was the reason it impacted the overall sowing of the kharif crops. Now we are expecting that the kharif crops will enter the market in the December, and you rightly mentioned about the yield factor. We all know that 86% of farmers, they are called as a small and marginal farmer. That means less than 2 hectares of land. So if the plot sizes are coming down, that's going to impact the yield, because we will not be able to bring the scientific cultivation in the farming sector factor, and that is going to impact the yield. And until unless we have a strong cooperative system which will kind of pulling off all the plots and going for a community cropping and all those things, we are not going to see much improvement in the yield. That is a real worry at this moment.
And what would you say about vegetables, and even in vegetables, more specifically onion, there was a sudden spike in the prices. So could that also play spoil sport?
Yes, not only onion. Take the top. Tomato, onion and potato. So the good thing is that the potato has not seen much change in the prices. In fact, the potato inflation is in the negative territory. Now the tomato prices, which we saw some kind of surge in the month of September and also during the last 15 days of August, now the tomato prices are on the declining trend. The onion prices are still very high, and we are expecting that the full impact of onion prices will be seen in the month of November, and that will have some impact in the overall inflation. Now at the same time, if we talk about the other vegetables, we are not seeing much change in the other vegetable prices. In fact, the other vegetables are seeing some kind of deflation. So the only concern is the onion. Now the tomato and the potatoes are in the control zone. The other vegetables, the prices are in the deflation zone. So onion is the only concern, and that could play a kind of villain. I should not use the word villain, but that may play a role in the November headline, which we are expecting 5% plus.
The government has been kind of proactive, and they immediately came out a minimum export price for onions in order to stem the price rise. So that was a welcome decision by the government.
And apart from the minimum export price, the other thing is also that the distribution at the lower price in various localities, not just in Delhi,
through government agencies?
Through the government agencies, specifically NAFED. So when we are seeing distribution at a lower price, that and also through the Safal booths, which is the mother dairy booth, if we talk about Delhi. So that is giving some comfort to the people. But at the end of the day, it is the overall production cost that is the important thing. And that is going to impact the wholesale inflation. That may have some impact in the retail inflation also. So government is continuing with initiatives, and it is trying to intervene in the market, providing all kind of support. But if the production cost rises, then at the end of the day, it may have to think about that what more can be done.
I want to bring in and this highlight the inflation in eggs as well. 9.3% compared to 6.4% in the previous month. October month, we have the Navratras. We usually see that there's a reduction in consumption of non-vegetarian food. Even in that particular month, there's a spike.
Because if you can remember that the feed stock prices were very high for poultry feed stocks. So that was having an impact on the egg prices also before Navratri. And after Navratri, since we are entering into winter season, so as soon as we enter into winter season and as the winter progresses, we see more and more consumption of eggs. So that is one reason. And of course, the feed prices, that has also gone up. So that has impacted the overall egg prices.
Shishirji, now let's, shift gears and focus on the RBI. The RBI's bi-monthly monetary policy has been closely monitoring inflation, and obviously they have been doing rather a balancing act between inflation targeting and growth on the other hand. Now with this kind of a figure of 4.87, what would you say? RBI has a target of 4% plus minus 2% on either side. So this is quite within the range.
So you need to understand the two figures. One is, of course, you rightly mentioned about 4% plus minus 2%. That is the inflation targeting range, which is 2 to 6%. And then we have the median inflation rate, which is the what we call as the targeted inflation rate, which is the 4%. So the focus would be to bring inflation as close to 4%. And that is why we saw 2.5% increase in the interest rate almost year during last 1 year, and then we saw 4 pauses. Now the next meeting of MPC, which is scheduled to take place in the month of December, we are expecting that the pause will continue as soon as we are seeing the inflation rate below 5% or below 6%. If it is in the range of 5 to 6%, then it will go for pause. If it comes down closer to 4%, then in the second quarter of next fiscal, which is FY 24-25, we may see reduction in the interest rate. But for that, you will have to wait till at least till August, September 2024, when the inflation rate could be in the range of 4 to 4.2% or just close to 4% or maybe less than 4%, then only we can see some reduction. But as of now, we are expecting that for next 2 to 3 monetary policy review, pause will continue.
Shishirji, would you like to hazard a guess as far as the peaking of interest rates is concerned? Would you say that at this juncture, probably, the interest rates have peaked and now it's only a matter of time before the downhill starts?
See, there are two concerns at this level. One is, of course, the Israel-Gaza war, and the second one is the Russia-Ukraine war. We are also seeing that the crude prices are not in a very downward trend. Sometimes we see some downward movement, but still it is more than $85-86 a barrel, which is not a good sign for us. The good thing is that the pump prices have not been raised, which is giving some comfort and which is not having an impact on the overall inflation, because we all know if the pump prices are raised, then it will have a multiplier.
Prices have been frozen for the last more than 1 year.
Almost a year.
Since May
22nd May, if I can remember, when the excise duty was reduced, then prices came down. Now the price is almost frozen for almost an year or so,
And a
or
half,
more
yeah,
than
yeah.
you can say. But the real concern is that till when?
Just for the benefit of our listeners, we understand that the APM, the administered pricing mechanism, has been done away with many, many years back. And since then, it was left to the market forces. And more specifically in the metros cities, there was a everyday, daily revision of prices. Now in the last 1.5 years, that has been kind of done away with. So what is the stance at this juncture as far as policy is concerned? Is this present juncture, it seems as if the prices are being administered. So is the policy there, or has it been taken away?
Policy is still there, no doubt about that. And the only thing is that the oil marketing companies normally they go for hedging. So if they get some kind of benefit through the hedging mechanism, if the prices are not affecting their balance sheet in a bigger way, then there is no impact in terms of the retail prices of the petrol and diesel. Also, we should remember that in our country, we follow what we call as the import parity pricing mechanism. That means the crude prices is not the sole factor of determining the prices at the pump level. It is also the prices of petrol and diesel in the international market. So that is what we call as the import parity pricing mechanism. The basic logic is that if you import petrol and diesel from various countries, what would be the price after landing it, right? So that price will be applied at the pump level. That is the pricing mechanism we follow. So to cut short this answer, your basic question was that whether we have done away with the policy. No, the policy is still there. The only thing is that since there are too much fluctuation in the crude prices and too much fluctuations in the international prices of petrol and diesel, that is giving some kind of comfort to the oil marketing companies, and that is why they are not raising the prices. But if I'm just using the word if again and again, if the prices say go beyond a certain level, say crude prices goes beyond $100 a barrel and the international prices of petrol and diesel are also rising, then the OMCs will have no other option but to raise the prices. But for the time being, I am not seeing that kind of possibility.
So for the time being, this seems to be kind of a stopgap arrangement just to give relief to the consumers that the prices are being held at the same level?
Yes, of course, it's a stopgap arrangement, and sometimes you may say that whether it is a, kind of artificial mechanism which we are following rather than going for the market mechanism, which should be allowed to raise the prices or cut down the prices. Because if you can remember, sometimes back we were talking about the prices have come down, why we are not cutting the prices of petrol and diesel. So now the prices are again on rise. We are not talking about the price rise. At least nobody's in the government or from the OMCs are talking about raising the prices of petrol and diesel. So at this moment, we are not seeing any kind of possibility. And the only thing is that when there is a LPG pricing thing, because we have a lot of Ujjwala customers, almost 9.5 crore consumer. So if you can remember, government announced a 300 rupees cylinder for Ujjwala consumer, and they provided